on your screen.
Yeah, right. The reflection.
I don't know. I don't know what that means. All right, guys, you caught us in medias res. We were having a very conspiratorial conversation in the backstage, of course. Welcome to the channel. My intention was to talk about the ongoing Sotheby's Hong Kong auction, but there's so much else that we can talk about, and especially I keep telling everyone, when I put in the link there, I mean it. So I would be remiss to, take that opportunity away when people have actually showed up. C3D now, thanks for taking your seat and sipping on your tea or coffee, whatever is your favorite. Your suggestion was that I give it a shot to full HD. I don't know what it does. I don't know what difference it will make. I turned it on. This is 1080p now. I guess you will see the coffee and cigar or tobacco stains on my teeth a little more clearly, be that as it may. I'm doing this shtick now again because I have a bloodshot eye, this time the other one. My physician tells me that it's just an allergy, so I take his word for it. And if I croak, at least my Instagram is popping now, so I will die a happy man. How are you guys doing, man? How are you doing, Base? How are you, Oz?
Doing well. Good to see a stream up on this hour, a little bit more compatible with me.
Yeah, I try. I was gonna start at 5, but then I was, of course, as it always happens, I was waiting for a package, and of course that package was not delivered. They left a slip, and I will have I'll have to literally go to the scariest post office that I have ever gone to. It's happened to me a few times before, and when I live in downtown LA, so it gets it goes to this station that's literally right across the holding. I always confuse these things in English. I think it's the jail, not the prison. Which one is the worst one?
Prison.
Okay, so it's the county jail that's right across.
No, jail's got to be worse.
Jail's,
yeah, because
I barely speak English.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's actually right across, like, the jail, or whatever it is, the holding cells and whatever. And literally, there's no entrance. They have like a window, which, like, they literally serve you through burglar bars, basically. And the window where you should be able to see the officer serving you is so damaged and stained that you can barely make off this figure with a blue shirt, which I suppose is the USPS uniform, based on my previous familiarity. So yeah, that's literally where you have to go pick up the package, which is something that I need to do later this week. But anyway, I try to start at 5:30, if not 6, whenever I can. And I was hoping that, I took a couple of days off because of this eye. I was hoping it would get better. It really hasn't. And I really don't want to look more like a serial killer than I already do on the screen. So although I should have brought out my Arnold impression and do a Terminator. That could have been nice. Orange hand. Oz, how are you doing, man? I know you have been working on a couple of, what shall I say, craft projects, making your own.
Yeah, making some. Yeah, cutting foam, putting together toolboxes for my watch box options, but I don't know. Nothing came out of it that was truly inspiring. They are nice watch boxes from the perspective that at least they have a clear top. But yeah, I don't know. They're pretty big. That's the main issue. They're pretty big. Like, how many degenerates need like 15 watches in a watch box?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like it's like transportation, I guess, at that point, right? You know, and then the transparency actually becomes more of a problem than utility, I suppose. No.
Yeah, I thought about that. I think I could just put like a single layer that you put down when you actually want to transport it, as opposed to display. So you just like throw like a, 1 inch of foam over the top, and then you're good.
Do you have anything at hand, or do you want to show something from your Instagram, perhaps, so people get an idea?
Not at hand. No,
Okay,
don't worry about it. I don't think it's that popular. I don't think like it's basically box office poison for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why nobody has the same tastes as me.
No comment. People have, people have reached mainstream appeal coming from Australia before. You know?
Yes.
It wouldn't be the first time. Okay, so I'm trying to remember, because you finally came back on Instagram. Oz Expat Watches. That's
Yeah. I'm barely doing anything there. I felt obligated after getting an LLC for my activities, but it's like I barely understand Instagram. Like, I don't know why. Like, why post anything?
By the way, I love the fact that Oz has a logo, and I love how it just makes me hungry when I see it. It's probably my problem, but it's like a restaurant logo more than anything. It's like a Mediterranean joint.
There we go.
I want a falafel sandwich, man.
There we go.
Look it up.
I'll roll it up.
But yeah, this is the project, right?
Yeah, that's the one. So these are like modular toolboxes. What appealed to me about it was that it was stackable. They've got a drawer version as well, so a single drawer about the same depth, and it meant that you would be able to stack it, and you could also do something else if you wanted a drawer that did something else. But I just liked the idea of a watch storage solution that was stackable, safe, secure, from the perspective of like there's so many watch rolls, watch storage solutions that I see that would immediately damage the watch.
Right.
Like if you used it, you would damage it, as in you would immediately get scratches and so forth. And you put the lid down, and actually the lid is in contact with the watch or some stupid stuff like that. So I'm quite critical of watch storage solutions.
Like I kind of, again, like as I told you earlier, I took the piss out of you saying, like, I love how anti-luxury it is, but I would never use such a thing. But that being said, a lot of the luxury watch box solutions or watch rolls are so badly designed from a utilitarian perspective that like they're actually unusable. Like there are a lot of luxury watch rolls which is just a roll for supposedly 3 watches, but there's nothing to separate them. So
yeah, clinkety clink. It's like, it's so silly.
So when you use it to take it around in any way, you'll get them banged up against each other. Like, what kind of solution is that? So there is certainly a lot of room for utilitarian designs.
And I'm not exactly sure. I think the real reason that happens is because they're not actually people who have any watches that are designing these things. They sort of like they're just used to the aesthetic, or they're used to creating a container system or something like that for other things, but not watches. And there is something special about watches in that, number one, the bracelets aren't on elastic bands, so you can't just have a watch cushion that you cinch down to exactly the size of the watch cushion, unless it's a tang and buckle, which they might be used to, but that's not what a lot of modern luxury watches are. Mostly sports watches on steel bracelets or gold bracelets. And just from a watch cushion perspective, it all goes downhill from there. Basically, if the watch cushion cannot hold the watch without actually, damaging the watch, putting the watch in contact with surfaces, unnecessarily. The container itself is like hugging the watch as opposed to something else, then yeah, it all goes downhill rapidly from there.
Right. Yeah, the first one I think of is those little the Louis Vuitton rolls. They simply just don't have any kind of divider, and they're, you're risking it a little bit, with that.
Well, I mean,
And the more luxury, the more risk. As in, if you have like a set of gold watches on there, they're very likely to overcome the friction on the roll.
Sure.
So
and you're right, Oz, because it's like not even that. Sometimes it's like an afterthought, right? We have a monogram collection, and it can be any brand, right? I don't want to just harp on Louis Vuitton, but we have a monogram collection, so it has to have a passport sleeve, it has to have a trunk of this and that size, it has to have a wallet, and it has to have a cigar case, and it has to have a watch box.
Yeah.
But it's just there as a product, and doesn't even contain sometimes a grain of thought that goes into at least modifying the design, right? It shouldn't be that hard for a brand of Louis Vuitton's stature and manufacturing capabilities to have a foam.
They're supposedly handmade anyway. I mean, you could prototype it, make some mock-ups, and then ask someone, does this work for you? Oh, okay, not quite. Okay, well,
I would have to imagine it's simply a decision in aesthetics. Like they're just looking at it as it looks cleaner without it, so we're going to go without. You just think with all the other stuff that's out there, like even just like a simple like wolf roll would have those little dividers. It's not much material.
Hi, Junior.
Hey,
what's up, man?
Sorry, I can't join you, Gene. Yeah.
That's cool. If that's how children work, I should have some.
Yeah. So, but creating a cushion, it is difficult. So, the big issue is, again, it has to offer some actual springiness. Otherwise, it cannot actually retain the watch. And then wrist sizes vary. You go down to like 5.5 for some ladies, all the way up to like 8 inches for a guy. And having a cushion that can actually accommodate that range and offer retention, it's not simple. I'm not sure it's possible. I think really, if you can't really do it right, you just got to say, well, we're gonna have small, medium, and large for the cushions.
Exactly.
It's just got to actually fit. I almost all the watch retention things I've got, they're just too big. Like I have to pop the Easy Link out and then squeeze as hard as I possibly can, or something like that. And God help my wife, like there's just no options for a lady.
Sure.
But yeah, that's also that's something that would work in a watch box or trunk like situation, to have modular or different sizes of cushions. But in a watch roll, then, when you have a small cushion this time of the same size of the roll, this time you have the possibility of that entire roll kind of shifting around in the container and causing trouble that way. So you're right. I think ultimately there needs to be more. I think there's certainly room for niche brands and smaller brands of leather makers offering these sorts of products that are more bespoke, as they say, or made to measure, you can specify everything.
Yeah, I know in cases they do that. They'll do the different size cushions. But in a roll, you'd think like it'd almost be the different, maybe even like you'd keep the same dimensions, but the internals maybe would have different densities so that they could respond differently to different sizes.
Yes,
perhaps.
yeah. You need different types of fill. Effectively, you need pillows on pillows and so forth. So I think one of the issues is that a lot of what they want to do, they don't actually want to accommodate the range of things that have to happen. As in, like some foams and materials are easier to work with and very difficult to use at mass production. And they go, oh, let's just use the one for mass production. And then all of a sudden you're working with a foam that's about as hard as wood and accommodates a very finely tuned range of sizes, and that's the product as it is. And God help you if you don't have the exact right wrist size. So it's not super easy. I'd say like 95% of watch box and watch roll designs I just don't like. And even enthusiasts do sort of get it wrong. So I did see someone build like a watch foam type thing for a Pelican case, one of the smaller ones. And I pointed out, like, okay, it sits in a cushion down there, but the top doesn't have the eggshell foam, so once you start like turning it upside down, the watch is going to fall onto the lid, and it's just loose. And I was like, it seems pedantic, but I mean, the purpose of such a case is to protect the watch. So it's like, what's the point?
Not be a booby trap for the watch.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's definitely and so the most dangerous situation that I usually put a watch into, I don't travel with a set of watches and have it rolling around in the luggage or anything like that. There's nothing that I'm satisfied that I would do that with, except for maybe the Pelican case that I've got. But it's mostly to put in a safe. So if I have a few watches at home, if I go out or something like that, they'll go in a safe. But the safe isn't exactly the damage-free area that you might think it is, because there's like guns and stuff and other things stored in there, and things get jostled around and things could fall on top of whatever it is, or it could slip and stuff like that. So I like to have something good protecting the watches when they're in the safe.
Of course.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I'm just trying something new since we have some traffic on YouTube finally. I just posted a story and a link. Maybe some people will join there. We're not a quintet, perhaps, like Dizzy had. We're a trio. And I think
you do have a StreamYard, so I think there is an option to set up other outlets.
I think there is the option. The only reason I'm not doing it right now concurrently on Instagram is because I'm waiting until I get 10K so I can have monetized streams on Instagram. Since I'm monetized only here, why waste a good opportunity, pull people here and have that. I mean, speaking of things that frustrate me, I'm not as frustrated, so I'm not gonna bash them, but I'm also not gonna name them because I want, they're not paying me, and I never want a sponsorship for things like this. But I just got some new straps for my new watch, the Dunhill.
Nice.
I put it on a NATO because that's always the easiest, but I got this kind of nice canvas strap.
I like that. That's cool green.
Nice.
I'm kind of disappointed. Is this the case now that they don't even send luck pins? Like, I get 2 straps from you. Can't you just send them with luck pins? Like, that they are just straps. And I know some strap makers even send it without a buckle, without as much as the buckle.
Wow.
Like, why is that a thing? Why is that a thing?
You can't assume things, right? Like, you can't assume the customer. If anything, you should be giving them a little discount if you're, not including those items. Granted, they're, pennies on the dollar, but
yeah, it's not to be honest, it's not the kind of website that sells things at a huge markup. So I do understand, but then again, maybe having come from some of the luxury makers, where it's become standard now to have these like open lips like this, right? Where you can actually, you have the integrated luck pin anyways. It's easy to put on, easy to take off. I don't know. Can't be all that much more expensive to have stuff like that, or at least include luck pins. Like, again, stuff that some of these makers do without
real thought.
Without really
Yeah.
thinking, without real thought behind it. Or maybe it's just a cost-cutting measure, basically,
Right.
like you said.
And it should be disclosed, in the listing that it does not include said, buckle or, lug pin things. So it shouldn't be like a surprise when you get it. You should almost expect it.
Yeah. I've never.
I mean, maybe if
It
it's
really depends.
expensive.
Like you get to a certain luxury point, and you really want the OEM pins, and to provide your own pins that may be of not super good quality or whatever. Not literally OEM. It just may not be a great idea to do that.
That's legitimate.
Yeah, and it may also, I'm overly cautious, so there'll be like 99% of people who'll say no, but I'm overly cautious. Another one would be if you did provide such lug pins as a convenience and it failed, you could be blamed for damaging a luxury watch.
That's, again, speaking of doing things without thinking much, I guess I didn't think this through enough myself.
No, look, I do think that that's really more devil's advocate. I'd throw in the pins, but it's really the user's choice to use them or not. That's how I'd land on it. But at a certain level, I wouldn't use the pins. But yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fair. And that's actually good points. And a lot of times too, like if you have a somewhat later model watch, you could probably get lug pins just as a courtesy from your your AD.
For sure. But I guess it's also our viewpoints on this, Oz and I, are also slanted in a way from the kinds of collections we have, right? Most of my stuff is vintage and near vintage.
Oh yeah.
So
true story.
I have bought a lot of watches where the original pins were almost rotten inside. So
Right.
I couldn't wait to get rid of them. And even the generic, whatever lug width it was, generic lug pins that any strap maker would provide would do a
the
better
job.
Whereas
That's fair.
all this collection is exclusively modern Rolex and some Tudor. So for him to rely, even when he changes to other straps, on the OEM pins, it makes sense because that's really an integral part of the watch in a way that keeps everything in place. So
absolutely,
I think it'd be a lot easier to live with like lug pins going around willy-nilly if there actually was a standard to the lug pins. Like there is actually no standard. There's not like, oh, they're all 0.8 of a millimeter or they're all one, like there's no actual standard to them at all. Like how long should the neck be, how long should the stem be, like how much force is supposed to be. Like there's no standardization of those pins, and so like it's like how could it ever be right if they if there's no actual standard. And it can matter because if you're talking about a pin that just say it's like an older watch and the holes are not as crisp, and the it sort of it can cam out basically a little bit potentially if there's not enough force and the stem doesn't go. Yeah, so and I've noticed even like on modern Rolex, the Submariner pins are different to all the other pins. So it is.
I mean, the cases are not necessarily, in fact, not at all uniform across different models. And for example, for my Rolexes, I usually get they're replicas, but the fatter lug pins, 20 millimeter, that kind of mimic the original ones that came with those watches, like with the 4 digits, etc.
Yeah. So like what I'm talking about specifically
Go
is the
ahead.
Submariners. The hole is bigger on the Submariners, and then the actual, the main body of the pin is a wider diameter as well.
Right.
So they're real chunky. They're not as big as like say Seiko diver watch pins, but they are deeper.
Yeah. You want it to bite right in, right? You don't want any kind of wiggle.
Yes, yeah. So I did successfully put a GMT Master 2 Jubilee bracelet on my Submariner at one point, but what isn't nice about that is that it's like a tiny hole. I mean, a tiny pin going into a large hole, and
Sure.
I didn't want to leave that on the watch for very long at all.
By the way, our friend I Heart Maldives sent 2 recommendations from the back. A brand called
Yeah.
Elements X, a Pelly case with a relatively hefty price,
Yeah.
I guess 200.
No, I don't think that's a big deal actually. I like that case itself is probably close to $200 already.
Okay.
What I will say is these cushions don't look that great, but they will work because they are foam. They'll simply crush to your dimension. Retention looks like it'll be good. Like it'll be the same shape as the hole. So for the most part, the watch should be floating in that pocket. What I don't like is the top cushion, and I'm going to guess the bottom cushion is just bare foam. For me, if it's potentially coming into contact with the watch, it should be like a microfiber or something like that. Not because the foam's going to do a great job of like collecting dirt and dust, and you keep putting that onto the thing each time. It's going to be
Hey, Daddy,
Hey.
yes.
can you fix my mod?
Later. Yeah. He wants his Minecraft mods fixed.
Oh, I thought I heard a watch
Nah.
there. There's a second suggestion that Maldives has, but I want to welcome Orange Hand and the Goss. Billy Carson sucks. Well, I mean, yes, I guess the Late Show can be understood as a reference to the original. I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion on Billy Carson. I actually, loving thrift shopping. I wish I came across some of his sports jackets. I would certainly buy and rock them. I liked his wardrobe, but yeah, I don't have any strong feelings. And he says, I've bought leather straps, or they say I should say, looking at that avatar. I've bought leather straps from Vietnam, and they sometimes don't even cut holes on the strap. There are a few suppliers that some of my friends swear by that manufacture in Vietnam. I think their main advantage is that you can kind of bespeak each detail. So yeah, it's kind of awful that they would send you, without even making the holes, but perhaps you should have specified. I don't know. Maybe it's just an oversight. That looks pretty awful. I mean, it's easier to punch holes and extra holes, but then, why are you buying a strap for a luxury watch?
Honestly, putting holes in a watch strap, I would not appreciate that task because that's leather working. Like it's literally leather working, and those holes, they're not just there willy nilly. Like they're meant to be lined up on the center. I don't know if you've ever tried to do something precise with leather. It's like putting a tiny hole right in the center. That's actually difficult.
Speaking of which, speaking of Vietnam, Maldives actually has apparently a couple of straps coming from Vietnam. I like this style actually. A lot of Lange has this sort of kind of rounded end on their straps. This is for the 3705. The Patek, huh? Yeah, it's a cool piece. And there's the other side, of course.
Cool.
Yeah, you catch a, small glimpse of what the brand is, which, again, I won't necessarily mention. I have no problem, by the way, when other people come in and talk about the kind of products they enjoy. I just want to remain agnostic when it comes to, anything watch related, except for things that I experience firsthand and want to talk about. And I always find that the reason I didn't talk positively or negatively about the watch straps that just come in is because when other YouTube channels do, it's usually for sponsorship reasons. So I don't want to replicate that kind of discourse at all.
That's fair. That's fair.
The other brand that Maldives was recommending, I know this guy and I communicated with him before. This is Giampaolo Menicucci. He's like an Italian leather maker, and he makes just about everything, from custom straps to watch boxes, and also, by the way, if you have a project, let's say, like you have an old leather trunk of some sort, it doesn't have to be a big brand that you want to turn into, get rehauled and turn into some sort of watch box. He does projects like that too. I've never had personal experience with his products necessarily, even though I know he has supplied to some of the more generic brands. I believe he operates out of Florence, I want to say. Anyway.
Pretty cool.
I heard generally nice things about his products, but yeah, you see he has a similar kind of
Oh, that
tray.
looks pretty
Yeah.
nice.
It does look sharp.
Like if you look at the cushion, I think it's flanked by metal sides, and they potentially, although just in the photo it doesn't look like it, they potentially could like integrate with something in the actual pocket. But yeah, good drawers would be nice.
Cloud Ken says, "Evening, guys. Is today bad hair day?" Well, I mean, in my case, every day is bad hair day. Have you never seen me on the screen before? I have about 3 threads of hair left in my head, but yeah, it's just I hadn't. Fenil says, "Handon, made from Vietnam, make lovely straps." That was, by the way, the strap from our friends I Heart Maldives that I was showing. And I have another friend who swears by them. Yeah, I've never heard a bad thing about them. If that was the strap maker that the Goths used as well, I think it's an incredible oversight if they sent a strap without punching holes. But yeah, generally hadn't heard. Look at that. I mean, I absolutely despise the customization, but I kind of like how the watch box fits it so nicely.
Yeah, that watch cushion looks quite tight around the actual, just in the pockets. Looks quite nice.
Yeah, and I guess that's one of the reasons why I Heart Maldives sent this link.
This looks very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Like to cut a pocket like that and then to upholster it in that at that level, that this looks very expensive.
Yeah. But again, at least there are makers there that make these kinds of detailed customizations possible.
Yeah.
I love Cloud Cat. He never, doesn't take any prisoners.
No, he doesn't.
Mhm.
I have actually great news related to a friend. Let's see if I got this link already. Because I have been consulting him for a while on getting AP ultra thin perpetual calendar, and I had sent him a link from the recent Sotheby's online auction. Oh yeah, there's it. And he actually ended up winning it, and it's a pretty good price for what he got. This was from the recent Fine Watches online auction. It's a reference 25657BA. Classic ultra thin perpetual calendar with that balanced layout, moon phase indicator, the 3 subdials for the calendrical indications, with blued hands against a white dial. Very legible. Well, as legible as these things get, like your eyesight goes a little bit as you age, as I'm sure, we all experience to some level. And this is not necessarily a huge watch. It's a 36 millimeter, ultra thin with the stepped bezel, nicely sculpted and downturned lugs. And this was a great condition. There are a lot of these pieces, variations on a theme, because AP has produced a lot of these in different metals too, throughout the 80s and 90s in different reference numbers. So Chrono 24 offers a lot of interesting options, but some of them have over polished cases. Others don't necessarily have the best pictures or presentation, so it's hard to make a decision whether there's anything on the dial. Again, it's just a dress watch. There can always be water ingress, humidity ingress. There's not always good pictures of the movement, etc. when these listings are made. And as it happens, this was actually a full set. And you guys know I'm not obsessed with that usually, but when it's there, it's there, and it makes for a nice presentation. Very happy for him, and hopefully we are going to make a video about it as well once the watch arrives from Sotheby's. But you guys know this was a very sly way of integrating that I consult people on building their collections and also single watch purchases as well. So if you're interested in that service, feel free to slide into my DMs on Instagram. At any rate, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that it's finally popping. And I have a lot of great horological lifestyle content, and I'm very braggadocious about it. I think it's the best by far, by some distance. So you'll certainly be doing yourself a favor if you follow me on Instagram as well. Love it, man. I'm wearing this pair of glasses because I have a bloodshot eye, but it turns me into a genuine asshole.
They're good, man. It's all good.
Travis Coulter says, just get Jean Rousseau. Don't compromise on quality, boys. They were horrible. They were horrible. I ordered a strap from them years ago. when they had first established their outpost in New York, and they didn't get a single detail right about the strap. They had all sorts of promises to me. It was like a very customized strap. Like, it was going to be more for my 5513, charcoal leather. I wasn't a vegan then, so it was even more freeing for me to order whatever. It was like American alligator, white scales on the outside, small scales on the inside, so like a double alligator kind of thing. It would supposedly accommodate the original déployant buckle from the bracelet, from the original bracelet, and it would have these end links, right, basically integrated into the padded leather strap that would sit flush on the case and on the lugs, of course. Absolute shitter. Like, it wasn't even close to what they promised. And it took like months and months, of course, because it was a bespoke order, which doesn't matter if they get the details right. I'm happy to pay a markup. I'm happy to wait and be patient when I ask for something special. But then if your solution is, let us make this right by making you wait another half year, I said, no, just give me a full refund. And I had to actually speak to their CEO to process the refund, which was an interesting experience. So
do you think they built it?
Like, the ready-made products, feel free to buy them because they do, it's decent quality, even though very expensive. But I would never, ever make a bespoke order with them unless it is through the Paris boutique. Maybe there, since it's the original location, they get things right. Basil, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to finish my thought.
Please, no, you're fine. I was going to say, do you think they just simply made it spec-wise against the wrong model of watch to get it off that far?
Well, it's possible, but I spoke with the person who was going to make my strap when I was initially ordering it. So they were very, like, ceremonially at least, they were very specific about it. I talked to actual, leather maker, strap maker. I came with the watch. We took the bracelet off. He examined the case. Supposedly took some measurements.
Right.
Which maybe he proceeded to lose. I don't know. I don't know what happened there, but it was, again, this is all a documented experience. So I have no problem talking about it, especially when they screw me that hard. And I know Travis speaks from a point of experience as well. So don't take me wrong. I'm sure you have reasons, Travis Coulter, to speak highly of them. But, since I actually care about what people say in my chats and I voice it, I also want to order a counterpoint, which is, again, solidly based on my experience. Hey, Ducky, how are you doing, man? And Ivor, nice to see you too. All right, way to take the air out of the room. I'm sorry about that, guys.
I could follow it up with a good strap experience.
Yeah, please.
Bespoke.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So actually, you've seen this watch, I think, featured on the Bulgari that I have.
Yeah.
The Jump Power. Yeah. So I bought it with the original OEM rubber, vulcanized rubber strap that it comes with, and brand new. It wasn't, cut or trimmed. It was, the full size. So I was like, you know what? I have a feeling this rubber strap, it might be a little hard to source in the future. So maybe it'll look cool on something leather. There's a leather worker right in town where I live, and I was following him a little bit on Instagram, and I saw a lot of cool stuff. And he isn't really like a watch guy. Like, he just will kind of work with whoever. If you have ideas, he does a lot of like belts and, you know, bags and stuff like that. But yeah, I kind of had some ideas. I was like, could you emulate the kind of like almost like the scales that the OEM strap has, but do so, you know, in like a leather body? And he was like, yeah, I could do that. He measured it out, and it was a little pricey, but considering how quick it was and how like close it was to the original, I felt like it was pretty cool. So it's fun.
We have a very good specialized strap maker, actually, who is based here in Southern California. He's Attila Ashodi, I think is his name. He has an Instagram page that's pretty active. Again, I haven't used his services, but he makes some incredibly beautiful looking custom projects. But I know it's also accompanied with probably deservedly with a very high fee. Let's see if I can pull up his Instagram account so we don't, since I actually mentioned them. I think he actually makes straps for some of the people who make, like, who independently produce watches here out of Southern California.
That's cool.
Let me see. Where are we? Yeah, there.
That's loading up.
That's not it, obviously, but I've completely lost the plot. Whereas I have so many tabs open all at once, so I can't even. Is this it?
I'm seeing
Yeah,
something
it is.
on the screen. Yeah, I can't read the font though. That was.
But yeah, this is
There we go.
Attila
Zadi.
Asodi, Los Angeles, Baden-Baden. Amazing. I think these are made from like old saddle leather.
Sure. Yeah, I could kind of see that. That kind of age looked.
I saw someone who was doing some, you know, home level hobby / Etsy leather, small leather goods like little pouches and stuff like that from reclaimed just old Louis Vuitton bags. He has a good video about Louis Vuitton basically sending him a cease and desist, effectively accusing him of creating fake Louis Vuitton products. But it's like, this is bought and paid for material. It's not fake. It's my brand. It's not a fake. It's just reclaimed canvas and leather.
You know, Rolex does something quite similar to anyone who plays fast and loose with their product in terms of customization. You know, even though essentially it's creating something new, and ultimately, you know, if we boil down all the facts and give a very quick rundown of it, the projects that get away with that without indulging in copyright infringement is when it's something that is done at the customer's request. So you have to really trace your steps carefully if you're an artisan who works with that sort of, what do they call it, upcycled material.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Like, I mean, on a manufactured good like a watch, it seems akin to me like the German modding scene, i.e. they don't have one. You have to buy the product again whole. Like like originally I think AMG was like that, RUF for Porsches, and what's that? There's another one that plays around, like they had a smart car. They've done a lot of Mercedes over time. Brabus, yeah. Yeah, Brabus. They're sort of, they're reselling entire cars under their own name. Now, no one's under the impression that they've built the car from scratch. It's just the way that you're not allowed to modify a car in Germany has led to them saying, well, we're not going to sell you the mods, we have to sell you the whole car. So, but it happens in England too. I think there's a Kahn is a very famous modifier of all sorts of vehicles, from Bentleys to Range Rovers.
Mansory, right?
Right, Mansory, yeah. That's a very, very famous one too. So it strikes me that, you know, as long as you've bought and paid for the watch, you do whatever you want with it.
Sure. At that point, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, these are amazing. You know, as a fan of root beer, obviously I love this, but there are some old school nipple dials that belong to Submariners that have aged in a way that that looks so much like the root beer dials that people have that urban legend that that color was in fact, in a way, invented by the hand of nature or God, or whatever else you might want to call it, and that, you know, they used it for the GMT Masters. But this looks absolutely stunning. Like, this is probably one of the most interesting variations of a vintage gold Submariner, and it looks amazing on a leather strap too. You see, like, again, I don't want to put a maker on the spot like that at all, but I know he uses repurposed material, but it's usually you know, rather generic, right? Vintage saddle strap made from a 50-plus-year-old vintage English saddle. And also, you know, like the Louis Vuitton stuff is like their leather, or rather canvas, is very specific. You know, it's if you are actually saying it's Louis Vuitton, chances are you're either using the monogram or the checker design. So
I mean, in his case, I mean, but everything about his listing was just, it by no means at all was it purported to be a LV product.
Of course, but I can understand how they can get more protective of that, because it's recognizably that. And once someone sees that randomly, I'm not even talking about the person who buys it.
Right.
Someone sees something like that on the street, you know, what a cool watch box, what a cool strap, what a cool whatever, and suddenly it becomes something else, right? Again, you know, I'm not even gonna say that I'm doing devil's advocate, because I don't think it's so devilish or demonic to want to protect an established brand. You know, whether we condone everything else that the luxury conglomerates do that stand behind them, I think one has to have a measure of respect for them to protect a personal or like an individual in their IP, literally, that has been built through centuries. You know, I get incensed when people steal my stupid posts on Instagram. So, you know, I will give Louis Vuitton a break when they see their own product and their signature visuals being reproduced and repurposed in some way.
Right. But I mean, I think ultimately, like, what falls upon right or wrong is like really comes down to who are the people involved, and what would be like the ultimate good for society. As in, if aliens came along and saw someone taking an old bag and making new little pouches out of it, cutting away from the parts that were, you know, say overly worn or something like that, and making a new useful thing out of it, just being very objective, you would say this seems like a good. this seems like a good thing. This person is making themselves useful. This person's happy with a new thing that was created, or the alternative is throwing it in the bin.
Mhm.
So from just like an objective use and sustainability perspective, guaranteeing that all old LV bags must go in the bin is, I don't think, really that defensible.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. Obviously, you know that I've had that experience with Louis Vuitton specifically. So the fact that I have any sympathy for them
Yeah.
at this point left for them is you know, it's stunning
Yeah.
to me. And again, maybe it
Yeah.
speaks to the strength of that brand. But you know,
Yeah.
when you actually trust them, their own product, to refurbish, rehaul, you know, and fix, they take obscene amounts of time, and longer, like 3-4 times longer than what they had promised as a lead time. So if they don't, you know, if they're not going to fix their own product for you, which is a service you pay for, by the way, it's not
Right.
free, then I guess you have every right to take it somewhere else to see if they can salvage it, if they can fix it, if they, you know, make anything else out of it. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
You know, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I understand. Like,
I think it's also defensible on their
Yeah.
part to see if they can stop it because it's their IP.
Sure. Yeah, I can sympathize with what they want to do, but if you look at the outcome that would happen if what they would desire were to come true, it's objectively bad. So so that's where it comes down to, is like, you can have sympathy for all parties, but the outcome of having sympathy for LV, saying no one's allowed to, you know, reuse the goods in any way they see fit, would result in, like, things, you know, useful goods literally going in the bin,
Right.
for no real reason. So that can't be a defendable position. Like, unless people think, you know, otherwise useful things should go into the bin, I'm not really sure
No,
why anyone would support it.
I think I'm pretty sure. I mean, you have basically stripped down their logic to a certain conclusion, which can happen. But I think for them, the ideal proposition, and a lot of the luxury brands have internalized this finally and learned their lesson from it, that they are very supportive of secondhand slash consignment slash luxury resale market on their products. So I think if they imagine a solution out of it, I think they would be much happier if those bags, rather than being repurposed, were salvaged in some way and sold by one of those luxury consignment slash luxury resale platforms. And that's probably, for their own benefit, it's better for their quote unquote brand equity, and at least perpetuating the myth, which at times becomes a reality, that their products have this sort of quality that transcends one person's lifetime, and that can be even worth more money, you know, 10, 20 years down the line. I want to read this and maybe address it as well. The Ghost of the Horned Beast of Brisbane. That must be some complicated name for Archie Luxury, I think. Young Brando wearing sunglasses. I sighed because when you're as cool as he is, the sun shines on you everywhere. Thank you. I'm not going to read this ironically. I actually think of myself really highly, as you guys know, but I am wearing the sunglasses not as a shtick, as some other people do, but because I have a bloodshot eye, and I really want you to be able to sleep well tonight. And Ryan Offrey, nice to see you as well.
Actually, during COVID, I had a scarf that I wasn't wearing, Gucci scarf, real nice one, just wasn't getting any neck time. And yeah.
That sounds something like something
Oh no.
vaguely sexual. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. But so I actually went to a tailor, and I wanted to, get through COVID in style, and he made me a bunch of like COVID masks. So I took the scarf, and I had a bunch of masks, and there was a bunch of leftovers, so I put a few up on eBay, and I started to sell a couple, and then lo and behold, I got a little ding, hey, we're taking this down. So being that it was, I actually even gave kind of like the backstory of like,
What do you mean we're taking this down?
Which platform?
eBay.
Oh.
Yeah, I had them up on eBay, and I, my description, I made sure to kind of give the backstory of, this was my scarf. I own the scarf. It was taken and turned into these masks. It's Gucci material. It's not a Gucci authorized product, and take it for whatever it's worth. And it wasn't like I was like penalized by eBay. It was just kind of like, nah, don't do that. Kind of removal of the auction, which,
Interesting.
it's, yeah, I get it. It's kind of like, it's definitely like both sides of the argument. Personally, it's funny too, because I think it was Dirk Diggler was the recipient, the buyer of Archie's damaged LV box.
Yeah.
And Louis Vuitton actually did refuse repair of the box, given its state of damage. So
what?
Yeah, they because it was in one piece, barely, kind of a thing, and it was pretty charred up. It just drilled in two, and yeah.
Archie's after the robbery.
Yeah.
After the robbery, yes.
One
correct.
person bought it and
Yeah.
brought it to Louis Vuitton, and apparently they refused to repair it.
Correct.
At whatever cost. And I'm sure you can actually find, again, sometimes people don't necessarily look for it. Sometimes they don't want to bother. Sometimes it's also too expensive for what it is. That can happen.
Mm-hmm.
But they're always like in places like Southern California, for example, or New York City, or like you found your local leather maker,
right?
Again, on the Eastern Seaboard, right? There are people there who would fix it.
Sure.
If the brand itself doesn't want to bother with it, and
Right.
trust me, they barely bother with fixing the handle of a briefcase. So I'm not actually surprised at all that they turned it down. By the way, Ryan Hoffrey said, now we have to see the eye, human nature,
no.
Brando. And I'm giving you that opportunity. Everything has a price. 10 super chats. I started the goal. 10 super chats of $10 or more. And I also misspelled it too. I said, I will show you my bloodshot eye. I will certainly not sew my eye shut, even though that's a strange misspelling. That can't be taken that way. But I will show you my bloodshot eye if you give me 10 super chats of $10 or more in the next hour. I think that's a great goal. And if you're that curious, Ryan, you can do all 10 of them yourself, back to back. And I will show you for, not just for 1 second. I mean, an entire minute of it, and try to make it as menacing as possible. So there we go.
That's fair.
Another thing that people do with these kinds of products, speaking of upcycling, that they use nice silk scarves. A lot of times Hermes, hey, stop that. A lot of times Hermes scarves as a lining for their sports jackets or suit jackets.
Sure.
I've seen that done.
Oh, interesting.
That's pretty interesting. Let me see if I can find a few. But yeah, I have never heard of tailors getting cease and desist on the basis of something like that. This is a chap from Paris that I follow, and whose taste I actually really appreciate, mostly because it's very personal and cultivated over the years. So whether I like every bit of it is mostly an afterthought. I like people who have developed their own taste. But he had a few jackets, which, yeah, there we go.
Cool.
It's pretty cool.
And this is a very interesting design they integrated into it. This is like I'm not sure if there are any other tailors who do it, but some Parisian tailors, specifically Candeluca, does these teardrop pockets. So that's the opening of a breast pocket, actually, inside the jacket. But I think, yeah, if you're going to go for something, again, oddly specific and customized to all kinds of detail, you see this, I don't know if he shows it in detail, yeah.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, why not go all the way and have
Yeah.
something?
A lot of the athletes that get drafted, on national television will actually take the time to have, bespoke blazers with custom. A lot of times will be like their number or like shout outs to like family and friends and stuff. It's kind of a nice touch.
Yeah, and honestly, I've seen people literally hanging up Hermes scarves, like, as if it were a work of art in their living room. So if it can be used in that way, why not as a lining? Because honestly, I mean, a lot of these are designed by very respectable artists, and they're beautiful compositions. So if any of them is meaningful to you or simply beautiful to your eyes by any, for any reason, why not use it again in something that's as personalized as this? The only thing that comes to my mind, if you are living in a climate that's already perhaps humid and possibly punishingly hot, depending on the cloth, depending on the fabric of the actual jacket, it can add like a possibly insufferable layer. I mean,
Sure.
because silk actually has decent heat insulation, so it can make that jacket a very hot jacket in more ways than one. So, hey,
Very
92,
cool.
ABNS 92, nice to see you as well. Yeah, you see how we discovered very quickly how much that human nature really wanted to see my eye. There's not even a single dollar that goes to that cause. Trust me. I mean, again, I want you to sleep well. I think there are a lot of people in my audience who are already afraid of me and who listen to me silently without writing anything in the chat. They don't want to see me that way. I will kind of crop up in their nightmares more often, I should say. But yeah, let's take a look at this auction that's going on right now. I'm gonna drop the link in the chat if you guys want to check it out and see if there are any watches that you're interested in. So you can double dip if you want to ask your question with a super chat in that amount. But this is really hot stuff, and I was surprised because it's just an online auction, but it doesn't seem like Sotheby's is actually organizing any other auctions in Hong Kong this winter. So that's about it. But they actually have a pretty decent selection, from a gem set crash to a Nautilus jumbo in two-tone to a number of special Daytonas that we just passed by, from a Paul Newman to the entire Daytona Beach collection. They all have basically started closing just as we were starting the live stream today. And it's I think probably more than 150 lots. But the fact that I was focusing on initially was that they have all 4 pieces of that Daytona Beach collection, and just so you guys get the idea, I don't know if they are full sets.
Is it 4 or 3?
4. Yeah, this is it.
I'm not sure if the pink one is actually.
It is, but there was a. You know why you are confused? Because there was already in the Zenith era, there was a white gold with a pink tinted mother of pearl dial,
right?
That existed in the catalog, but it's not exactly the same watch.
Okay.
If only due to the movement. But these were actually, like you see with the matching, or mostly matching at least. There might be a few shades of a difference, but certainly matching materials on the presentation cases, as well as those leather straps. And even, I think they had, I don't think I added that, but they even had wallets to hold the documents that were using the same leather as well. And it's pink tinted mother of pearl, yellow tinted mother of pearl, turquoise, and chrysoprase. So those 2 are the special stone or semi-precious stone dials. And I guess you can categorize mother of pearl that way as well. But those 2, the yellow and pink, are the tinted mother of pearl.
Sure.
And the reference number is 116519. And they, like, you couldn't touch them with a 10 feet pole. But nowadays, they seem to sell really well. Usually the blue one, unsurprisingly perhaps, is the hottest.
Well, there's a lot of people out there who just collect. Well, I mean, not just, but I mean, they will collect Daytonas, plural.
Yeah.
I'm
We
hoping
have a lot of them.
I'm hoping to get there. And I've decided, like, a collection of Daytonas, I think that's pretty cool. Hey, if the Omega fans can have a collection of Speedmasters, we can have a collection of Daytonas. The only problem with Daytonas, though, is they're not that creative ultimately. So something like this, a little bit outside of the standard look, this is very special, and quite frankly, it's still accessible. This will not be the cheapest Daytona in your collection, but no one would argue that you have a collection of Daytonas if you have one of these in your lineup. It's...
And you know what I like actually about them. Again, I think these came out basically concurrently or right after they introduced the in-house movement, right? So right around year 2000. And I think initially, at least, it was a way of offering a more feminine version of a watch that was, so testosterone laden, had its own part to play in the horological space race, which it lost. of course, was for decades associated instead with motorsports, which is actually in a way, a battle it won over a lot of its competitors, if only after a long bout, and with its association with perhaps someone as iconic and possibly incontestably approachable as well at the same time as Paul Newman. But anyway, I think ultimately, I see how a lot of people don't necessarily like Rolex pieces on leather straps. And still that's the case, right? With precious metal oyster flex Daytonas, some people wouldn't even consider them, even in today's market and in today's desirability and lack of accessibility when it comes to stainless steel Daytona at retail. But this is different enough, like you were implying. And I think in terms of the blue and green, it's also not that feminine in that kind of closed-minded conservative way anyways. Like this is easily a Daytona that a man in year 2024 2025 soon can wear and perhaps should wear. I kind of like this. I like it a lot more than so-called Tiffany dial OPs and Nautiluses and everything else.
Sorry, I gotta go. I gotta fix some Minecraft mods. But it's been a pleasure, Basil's Bezels and audience.
It's been awesome, man. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for dropping by. I'm happy to see you, and thank you, Junior, for saying hi to us. It's always nice to see you too.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Take care.
All right. Fantastic.
Yeah. So with those Daytonas, they weren't hot sellers when they first came out, to my knowledge.
Not at all. Not at all. That's what I was trying to say. And Oz actually made a great point in the sense that the market for Daytonas has matured so many times over that you can easily see how something like this would appeal to at least a serious collector of Daytonas, of Rolex sports watches. And this is lot, 2503, and it's sold earlier for 456,000 in Hong Kong dollars, and I think you divide that by 7.8 roughly. That's 58.6 basically, 58.6K.
The strap length is, what do you think would be the max, like a 7.5 inch wrist, if you were to guesstimate?
For the leather strap Daytona?
For that, yeah. Being that it was kind of marketed as more like kind of like a ladies when it first came out.
No, I think they offered
it was unisex. Okay, yeah.
Different sizes, like just as they have different sizes for oyster flex, although that needs to be arranged a certain way, so that's a little different. But I think also, by the way, Rolex still supplies straps for these too. So
that's all.
I don't know.
I wasn't sure that's really cool. I know obviously for some of the other leather straps that go on like Datejust and Daytonas, but yeah, that's really cool because
I think kind of they have them still
so limited. Yeah, that's
honestly
really cool.
Probably not forever because
they
the watch world started becoming really self-conscious about using exotic leathers, so it's there's a lot of pushback against the kind of crocodile, lizard, and more exotic straps. Honestly, they're genuinely trying to make plain straps cooler. So eventually, I can see Rolex joining that trend as well. which again, I don't mind. Times
Yeah.
change, and sometimes maybe it is a good idea to have something a little more toned down. But this was, again, such a special edition that if you acquire a watch like that, it's probably best to try to get a strap or two to spare, especially if it's like, if you got the presentation box. And apparently this lot, by the way, came with the original warranty card and the blue presentation box, right?
Nice.
With something as matchy, you either want your spare, or in fact, you just find a way of changing the strap to something simpler and put aside the original, so you don't run through it immediately.
Yeah, it's something you'd want to probably act on, because you might lose that window down the road of even if you don't necessarily need it at this point, just have it. You're kind of future proofing yourself. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of thinking ahead to like the Eye of the Tiger and the Rainbow Daytonas. It's like, here you are here. It's like, this is kind of like that gateway to just different and exotic and cool.
Cloud Can, $5. Thank you so much. That turquoise does remind me of a similar light blue Daytona Oz should have gotten.
Ooh, platinum.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know what to say. I don't want to beat that horse. I don't know if it's the mystique and its association with the platinum, but to me, the ice blue is so much more enchanting than even the turquoise dial, which, on paper, it's a semi-precious stone. And they're in vogue now, stone dial watches. Maybe it should be more attractive, but I would always choose the ice blue in a platinum Daytona. But this is not a bad combination at all. And turquoise and white gold, it kind of has also an appeal because of Native American jewelry that a lot of people like wearing, for example, right? Sterling silver with combined with turquoise stones.
Sure.
So I can certainly see, someone, with that full cowboy look in a Canadian tuxedo.
There you go.
With
Bolo tie and all.
lots of Native American jewelry and wearing a Daytona like this. I think it would look cool. And for me, again, the platinum Daytona, for someone who initially didn't necessarily like Daytonas and really grew to like them, to me, that remains top of the line. I mean, ultimately, I obviously, respect Oz's decision, even as I reserve my right to give more shit about it to him about it in the future. But yeah, Cloud Ken has a great point there. And JB, lovely to see you. $10. We only need 9 more if you want to see my bloodshot eye. Great Watch Talk, YB, Oz, and BB might not be able to get that bracelet through customs depending on what it's made of. And he was talking about, of course, these lizard straps of Rolexes, which you might have to, from this auction specifically, you might have to reclaim somehow going to Hong Kong yourself. The green one, by the way, which was lot 2502 with a chrysoprase. They sometimes call it chalcedony, but I think it's actually 2 different kinds of stones. But again, I'm not an expert in precious or semi-precious stones, so I'm not gonna posture. That one sold for $420,000. And honestly, again, for me, it hurts, right? Not that I desire any of these specifically, but because I knew of a time where they literally couldn't give these away on the secondary market, especially. These were literally cheaper than stainless steel Daytona at retail when the
Right.
116-500 came out. So there's that. But now that you kind of recalibrate your mind, base, I think you will know what I mean. You know, where precious metal Daytonas are actually in a way quite attractive to many. People go after gem set stuff. You know, stone dial watches are somehow in vogue, or at least that's what the paid watch journalists tell us. That's what
Right.
they're trying to push at the time.
Sure.
So, compared to a lot of precious metal Daytonas that Rolex has in catalog, surely those come at this price point, they come on the bracelet. These can be interesting options for people to pick up on the secondary market, and even in an auction like this, where the green one actually went for about $54,000 US.
Yeah.
Of course, this is a Hong Kong-based auction. Of course, I know most of my audience is either in the US or the UK, so there's also customs and other dues that you have to take into consideration in addition to the buyer's premium in certain instances, but I think it's included in these results. It starts looking like an option,
Right.
not necessarily if you know what they were going for before. This one actually comes with not only the warranty papers and the green representation box, but also that green lizard leather
sleeve.
Sleeve, the holder.
Yep.
For the documents. So that's ultimately not that bad of a deal. And again, maybe in my case, I already put a lot of my 4 or 5 digit Rolex pieces on leather straps, so I kind of like this aesthetic. Of course, these are a little different because those end links are set in place. But the Daytona, in terms of its proportions, at least up to the most recent generation, has been the Rolex sports watch that wore quite like its neo-vintage examples. So I think it's one watch that's still in the Rolex catalog, more or less, that can be worn on a leather strap, and these white gold examples of it, whether with these exotic dials from the Daytona Beach collection or the later racing dials and such.
Right.
I think they're very, very attractive options, at least in my mind.
No, I think they're really cool. I mean, and somebody that, like many people have been a fan of, like the Stella dial day dates, it kind of has that style to it.
JB says, didn't Brad Pitt have this with a green man purse? No, that was a custom green dial IWC Ingenieur that he had with a green duffel bag. Come on, man! I love Brad Pitt. Be nice, be nice. That's one of my favorite actors who are still working. Ryan Hoffrey says, I'm a registered native, even though I'm whiter than base. Ryan, that's a very interesting take there. I'm sure Basil is fine with his pigmentation, so I'm sure he won't take it the wrong way.
Not at all. It's all good.
Natives don't do gold. A sterling Daytona with a turquoise dial could be badass. JB says Brad Pitt is an icon. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I'm not kidding you. You were talking about him wearing a man purse. I hope you were kidding. Look, Rolex doesn't, for one reason or another, and I think they usually have right reasons, and I know we complain a lot about the glacial pace of development in Rolex's catalog. but they don't play fast and loose with their established models. You will see, now that there has been the so-called podium collection of Black Bay heritage pieces in Tudor, where you had the 18 karat gold, where you had the sterling silver, and where you had the bronze in Black Bay 58s. And there's also a larger sized case for the bronze as well. And a full bracelet version of the gold. Anyway,
Yep.
I'm always very long-winded, as you know, Base. So I'm
It's all
sorry.
good.
But
It's all-
what I
no,
was
you're
going to
fine.
say, you might end up seeing a sterling silver, maybe chronograph from Tudor at some point.
I could
It's
see
not
that.
completely unrealistic to expect, but from Rolex, probably not in this century.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
if they,
They'll let Tudor mess around with that kind of stuff, I think.
yeah, even if they end up, experimenting it, probably not in this century.
Yeah.
The pink gold version, the pink version of the Daytona Beach, which I like calling Meadow Soprano, and I posted this on my Instagram feed before. I'm not going to
I
waste.
actually remember this post. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to waste all that time to pull it up right now because I hadn't prepared it in advance. But Meadow Soprano actually wears this, I think, in season 4 of The Sopranos. And again, that show was way ahead of its time, but it was also ahead of its time with this particular thing, even though I have a sneaking suspicion because of the way this collection was marketed or sold, at least initially, that this may have been the most popular one when it came out, because
Sure.
again, not that a man can't wear it, don't take me wrong, but it seems to have that sort of, it seems to exude that feminine appeal
Sure.
of this entire collection that we were talking about earlier.
I'd have to agree there. Yeah.
Guys, by the way, I see the number of the audience jumped up a little bit. So if you haven't done it already, please hit the like button. That always makes a huge difference. We are actually looking at an ongoing auction for a change. It's an online auction called Fine Watches, based out of Sotheby's, Hong Kong. And they have a lot of interesting pieces, including all the 4 examples of the Rolex Daytona Beach collection from the early 2000s. This is the one with the pink tinted mother of pearl dial. We have looked at the other examples. Unlike the other examples, this does come with the matching lizard strap and, of course, the 18 karat white gold déployant clasp as well. The warranty papers there, but not the matching presentation box, I think, which may have affected the price, even though this is usually quite popular. And it sold for $54,000 US, just a little earlier, just about almost 2 hours ago by now. But yeah, this was the watch on Meadow Soprano's wrist, at least for a couple of episodes, I believe, if memory serves, in season 4. But you have to rewatch every single episode anyway. So go do that, or just go to the link that I dropped in the chat and fish it up from my Instagram feed. This was lot 2504 that sold for 420,000 Hong Kong dollars, which amounts to roughly 54,000 US dollars. The first lot, 2501, was Paul Newman, specifically a 6264 classic Panda pump pushers, acrylic tachymeter bezel inserts, What do you like actually the exotic dial Daytona? Basil?
I do. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely do. It's just, I like things that are interesting and are a little bit limited. It's really cool.
Of course, they're ultra desirable and come with a hefty premium.
Sure.
Since every variation of it is called Paul Newman now.
Yeah.
Of course,
That's a good point.
I have actually done a whole references and auction results on. Let me pull it up. Pull it up. On some of the significant references of the Rolex Daytona. RAR episode 3 on the Rolex Daytona. So feel free to check that out. But obviously, even though exotic dial Daytonas are not the rarest of Rolex chronographs, right? There are earlier references, some of the pre-Daytona references with the ever so desirable silver dial, for example, are much more rare, or rather the gray dial, I should say, because that's like a few shades darker, than the usual silver dial. The 60 reference 6238 has that variation. Since they have been associated with Paul Newman, and finally because Paul Newman Daytona has broken records, right, selling for almost 18 million. These pieces have a particular mystique around them, and we were just talking about Tom Brady's the GOAT collection that sold, and the most valuable watch there was actually
full
a
gold
Paul
one.
Newman Daytona in gold, right? The so-called John Player special. So it's sometimes it's hard to escape the hype completely. And one thing that I hate doing myself is hating on things simply because a lot of people like them, and simply because it's the flavor of the day.
Sure.
Right? I think that's also a bad reflex that some people develop, and it took me a while to get to that level of self-awareness that I can sometimes react very quickly and try to be a contrarian for that sake, rather than listening to my own taste and seeing it develop in real time sometimes. So I do actually like the exotic dials as well, though not really as much as I enjoy some pre-Daytona chronographs, honestly.
That's fair. Yeah.
And even some of the silver dial variations of all these different references, and we are looking right now at a 6264. I do like the screw down pushers a little more, especially once you go back in time. The pump pushers can be really finicky.
Sure. They're exposed.
It's look, we don't think about it on a daily basis sometimes, and if you are gonna wear your vintage watch, the best way is not to think much about it. But honestly, I mean, it's I can imagine so many nightmare scenarios where the pump pusher of of a watch just pops off
Yeah, that's
and gets
exactly what my
lost,
mind
like,
went to, right?
in a restaurant or in the dark on the street. Who knows?
Yeah. The worst.
But anyway, but then again, I'm also a vain person. I sometimes privilege aesthetics over utility, and I kind of like the way pump pushers look on the Daytona. So I'm kind of broken up about it, or rather of two minds about it. But this is a decent example. Again, just to think of the premiums that they have on these pieces, this is certainly not the best case I have ever seen. Admittedly, the bezel is in great condition, and so is the dial, seemingly, as much as I can see with my stupid sunglasses. But it looks fine, even though the case seems to have seen in the past some level of enthusiastic polishing from the condition of the lugs. But even then, this was their beginning lot, number 2501. That sold for 2.4 million in Hong Kong dollars. And that is basically 309,000 in US dollars. So well over $250,000.
Sure.
Base, I always ask you whether you have any particular ones that you wish me to bring up. Is there a watch in this auction that you would like me to discuss?
To be fair, I'm open. Wherever you want to take the path, I'm down to see what we got.
I mean, it happens to be in order, but then again, it's this is really one of my favorite watches in this auction, and I did put it in the thumbnail.
Yeah.
Lot 2507 is the Nautilus ultra-thin perpetual calendar. It's the reference 5740 line 1G, if you wish, meaning that it is in white gold or gray gold, rather, since G stands for French gris. And it is a watch that lives up to that name of ultra thin perpetual calendar, because thanks to the micro rotor caliber, it's only 8.42 millimeters in thickness, which basically makes it just a smidgen over the thickness of a modern Nautilus Jumbo, which is around 8.2, if I'm not mistaken, at least for reference 5811.
Wow.
I mean, obviously, I like a lot of micro rotor calibers from Patek's line. 240 has been one of the base movements that they have used, and maybe they should already think about replacing maybe in the next generation or two, but it has served them so well over the years. This dial, as far as I've seen in person, on the rare occasion, I think I've seen these twice. It's like a shade or two lighter than the usual Nautilus style.
Sure.
And I kind of like it. The dial layout as well, kind of a Mickey Mouse silhouette there.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. That's
Layout
funny you say
of the
that.
sub dials, but it actually makes up a really balanced and quite legible face for what it's worth.
Yeah. Yeah, it
And
is cool.
you see they're just slightly sunken, the two subdials for the day of the week at 9 o'clock and the month at 3 o'clock. And those subsequently encircle day-night indicator, which is a 24-hour hand, the leap year indicator, and there's an opening for the moon phase indicator at 6 o'clock, which is surrounded by a pointer date. I
The
think
layout's
this
pretty cool. Yeah, I really like the layout. It's just easy to kind of find each day and date and, time that you're looking at.
off the top of my mind, I want to say the piece is about 160,000 or so, or 155, but it's really, honestly, this is one of the pieces that it's really hard to get an allocation for. I mean, it's I know established customers of Patek who had to submit an application and then waited for more than 2 years to get an allocation. So
Sure.
it's a hard piece to get, even for privileged customers. And this one sold for 1,440,000 Hong Kong dollars, which adds up to 185,000.
Okay.
Which overall, again, doesn't seem like a horrible deal. I want to say that was roughly what Eric had one in his stock very recently. Eric Wind of Wind Vintage.
Yeah.
My friend. So you should always know that I will speak very highly of him from that, but God knows he's one of the most respected watch dealers all over the world, but certainly on this side of the Atlantic.
Sure.
He had one in stock that he sold right around that price. I think it was right around 185,000. So that doesn't seem, again, if you're rolling in that segment,
yeah,
if you find a good example of this unmolested, with all the bells and whistles on the secondary market, it doesn't seem like such a bad purchase.
Yeah.
And I know, by the way, I really value, I love Maldives' perspective, as someone who loves that brand so much and who has so many incredible watches from them, from perpetual calendars to minute repeaters. And he sees a lot of value of seeing his own name on the papers.
Yeah.
Which I can understand, which I most certainly respect. But it's not something that I'm so finicky about, that I'm so choosy about. But then again,
I think it's really just like where you are, like in like the whole, like the quote unquote watch buying journey, right? Like if you have other pieces that you can maybe supplement in participation, then maybe that weight is kind of meant to be. Though if it's something that that's going to be the one you want to get in your collection and you want to make it happen to pay the premium, yes, missing out on the actual paperwork being your name in ink. It's like I kind of can get both mindsets there.
Thank you again, JB, for your generous super chat, $9.99. How does the Cartier rank among fine skeleton Swiss watches? I think that's the model number, and I know it again mostly because a friend of mine just got it. I believe that's the one in pink gold. He got it in yellow gold. This was my favorite release of Watches and Wonders 2023 of any brand, but certainly of Cartier. It's the Santos Dumont micro rotor.
I had a feeling it was with a little airplane. I like that one.
Yeah, look, I mean, if you don't buy into it, I've seen people who call this, from anything to too playful, tacky, and whatever else. I actually love it. The Santos Dumont is the original man's wristwatch by at least, if we go by brands with established designs and some sort of serial production, right? If we don't talk about most certainly conversion watches and so-called marriage watches and the history of trench watches, this was the first watch designed to be worn on a man's wrist, right? That's the heritage. And it was for
aviation.
Alberto Santos Dumont, right? Who was Louis Cartier's friend. It was designed for him. So come year 2023, when this was released, to pay tribute to it in a way that integrates Santos Dumont's plane in actually such a playful way on the dial as part of the winding mechanism. That's not so bad. I think that's actually quite beautiful in the best way possible. And it also, gives you, in terms of its placement, both the winding mechanism and the mainspring barrel, so kind of a natural view of the power reserve, you might say. The balance wheel is there as well in the picture. It's not the most artisanal open working that I have seen by any stretch of imagination, don't take me wrong, but it's the kind of open worked skeletonized / exhibited movement that is thoughtful, aesthetically pleasing in terms of its architecture, in terms of the placement of integral elements. It's a watch that looks good, and that's really what you expect from Cartier, right? Not the most artisanal, freehand engraved work, perhaps, when it comes to a skeletonized watch, but a good design. And I think this version of the Santos Dumont certainly delivers that, and delivers that in spades.
Definitely.
I actually, I like it best in the pink gold, as it happens. The stainless steel one is the best bang for your buck, most certainly.
Sure.
I think officially only the yellow gold one was a limited edition, off the top of my mind. I can double check on that, JB, if you would like. So feel free to write it in the chat. But in either case, this friend of mine who just got the yellow gold one, got it on the secondary market and for considerably cheaper than the retail price.
That's awesome.
And that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
When Cartier has become, it's a brand like that was, I think, always snooty, but when it comes to watches, they have kind of gotten snootier. A lot of times, at least, I will speak to my experience in the Beverly Hills location, right? So
Sure.
when I go in there and want to look at watches, unless something is already in the case, they don't show me anything. When I ask about new releases, and I don't go the day after Watches and Wonders, trust me, I give them a few days, sometimes a couple of months. They never show those watches, right? Because I'm not a special or preferred client. They say they can only be ordered in advance.
Sure.
I think they expect you to pay in full too. Don't take my word on that, but I think that's quite absurd. And only then you can see an example. I think that's ridiculous. And most Cartier pieces, except for very limited runs and very niche pieces, like perhaps like the platinum tank normal on the matching bracelet, etc. Unless you are talking about pieces like that, a lot of this stuff, if you just sit on your hands, find your zen and practice some patience,
True story.
wait for 1 or 2 years, you'll find them cheaper, if not
Right.
significantly cheaper on the secondary
Yeah.
market. So that would be my take on the Santos Dumont, which I really like in this micro rotor open work version. I like it especially in pink gold and stainless steel for different reasons. In a way, I think the pink gold one really appeals to me aesthetically, and stainless steel one is just the best deal. This is a look from the back, by the way, which is not too bad either.
Yeah, I like that shot.
But in either case, it's always better to buy it on the secondary market, unless you have some reason of inflating your purchase history through them, because I don't know, you want to order some $1 million customized jewelry perhaps from them for the missus. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, with the exception of the crash, I don't really see, like a ton of, they hold value, but they don't typically hold full value.
Yeah, and that has a lot to do, by the way. Let's discuss the crash from this auction. That has a lot to do with simply the limited nature of the piece. I think the only way, I'm sure there are other shortcuts. Look, I mean, brands make exceptions for some of their high rolling clients, no doubt. But officially, the only way you can get a modern crash is by getting on the list in the Cartier London boutique, and they have whatever is the current one, and I think currently it's the platinum version. They have one allocation or 2 allocations per month, I think, of it from that boutique, and the demand obviously well outpaces that level of production. Okay, maybe I got confused. I really thought there was a crash in this auction. Apparently there isn't. But there's a very nice CPCP monopusher chronograph. This is the lot 2589. And for those of you who may be just tuning in now, we're looking at Sotheby's Hong Kong Fine Watches auction, for which the link you will find in the chat. And this is an auction that is ending as we speak. It's an online one. CPCP is short for Collection Privée Cartier Paris. This was basically a conjugation of high horology and some of the most aspirational Cartier designs from their archive. And the Tortue is probably, in this chronograph form, some of the most desirable pieces in that collection. And it has a lot to do with the fact that it is actually Roaring Twenties revival that was suggested to them by none other than some of the 2 most esteemed independent watchmakers of our time, namely François-Paul Journe and Denis Flageolet. They designed the movements of this watch, a monopusher chronograph movement that was inspired by the monopusher tonneau-shaped chronograph that Cartier had as an archival design, but the movement was made from the scratch by THA, Technique Horlogère Appliquée, which was a collective established by Jean Flageolet and Vianney Alter. I don't think Vianney, or at least according to the interview that Denis Flageolet gave on this movement, Vianney Alter apparently didn't work on it at all. So it was a Jean and Flageolet collaboration. Denis Flageolet is the master watchmaker of De Bethune, for reference. And I think it's a very neat movement, as well as a very beautiful design, especially since that single pusher is integrated into the octagonal crown, topped by a multifaceted sapphire. A classic Cartier dial with a guilloche pattern that emanates from under the handstack, which is stainless steel, heat blued. So beautiful legibility there. Roman numerals with that hidden Cartier signature at 7 o'clock for the V of that Roman numeral, for the number 5 of that number that adds up to 7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful design. The case is kind of a stylized tonneau shape, which resembles a tortoise, right? Hence the name Tortue.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, of course, this case shape has been used in a modified form in Journe's catalog over the years, in the Elegante, especially popular with his jump hour pieces, right? The Vagabond, I have to say. And of course, the monopusher chronograph in different iterations has been used in De Bethune's catalog, and they have some beautiful variations of the monopusher chronograph over the years, starting with DB1. Of course, I meant vagabondage when it comes to the FP Journe jump hour watches. And again, the case, don't take me wrong, the case shape is not exactly the same. It's like a more flat tortue shape when it comes to the Elegante and variations of the vagabondage as well. That being said, the way that this piece, in terms of the design of the movements, has the touch of those two important independent watchmakers, and how it also has resonated with their later work, so to speak, makes this watch really attractive. This particular example, I don't know if it, let's double check and see. It comes with a Cartier presentation box, but that seems perhaps it's a generic one because it's not detailed in any way. And it was sold for 228,000 Hong Kong dollars, which is right under 30,000. And well within that range of the estimate. It was lot
Yeah.
2589.
Very well executed.
Yeah, it's a very simple design, and I love how, it just has the crown, which also is your chronograph pusher, start, stop, reset, everything all at once. Okay, we have actually gone over 2 hours. So let's see. Patek Chris says Cartier fine watchmaking is over CPCP. In my opinion, both great periods of Cartier watchmaking. Sure. I mean, I respect your opinion. I think maybe CPCP is generally preferred or privileged by a more mainstream collector because it's equal emphasis on designs and presentation, whereas the high watchmaking is more, I think, a selection that, at least to me, always carries Carole Forestier-Cassapy's signature and her contribution to high horology. I like them both, maybe equally. Yes, JB. I would say, when I would say that about honestly, any limited edition or special watch, right? And I know I'm in a way contradicting myself. And quite honestly, with most of my purchases, I go for the best condition watch that I can buy without really thinking about the full package and box and papers. But then again, a lot of times I don't go for these kinds of watches that are ultra desirable and very in demand. But that being said, right, if you are making that kind of purchase, if you are going for something quite rare, that has a special presentation box, that is essentially a limited edition, I would say essentially go for still the best example your money can afford. Pardon me. But that being said, get the one that also offers the full package, or at least the closest thing to it. But yeah, look, I mean, if you really like, say, the white gold example with the oversized single Roman numeral at 12, and you found a great example of it, but it doesn't have any of the accompanying materials, maybe you don't care. I wouldn't. I know I wouldn't care. I would just buy it if it's a good deal. So, yeah, but I would, when I'm recommending another person, I would say chase down the best deal, but try to get the full package when it comes to CPCP. Patek says, by the way, CPCP is definitely more on brand with the Cartier DNA, fine watchmaking more oddball. That's a different way to put what I've just said. Completely agree.
It kind of makes me think of like an LEC Chopard in a way.
Tell me more. What do you mean by that?
Just like kind of how it's like kind of taking things up a little notch and kind of making things a little interesting and different.
Yeah, although, it's not the same. I want to say LUC Chopard, and unfortunately not universally, right? Because a lot of their watches carry the hallmark of Geneva, but not all of them, which has been a great source of confusion, I think, and in an unnecessary way, right? Because they do have that distinction between Chopard and LUC Chopard. So why not kind of emphasize and underline that by making it exclusively Geneva? But anyway, I think they incline, LUC Chopard inclines more towards fine watchmaking than design, I have to say, than Cartier, which, you know, the CPCP collection and also the fine watchmaking does have some very exciting high horological pieces. But overall, I think, you know, they're mostly great Cartier designs with better movements than what they offer currently. That's
That's fair.
also for
Yeah,
certain,
yeah, it's kind
but
of more
not necessarily.
harping heritage than, you know, just making it like
Yeah,
fancier.
not necessarily the highest quality in terms of watchmaking. Now I'll bring one more. I'll bring up one more watch, and I think then we'll be winding it down. So if you have any last minute questions, requests, or if you simply want to support the channel, support these sorts of completely independent watch talks that are done for the pleasure, for the passion, for the enhancement of knowledge, feel free to chip in. There are also other options other than what YouTube already offers, linked in the video description, but I'm gonna drop my PayPal link too in the chat. At any rate, if you want to support, it's not obligatory. I thank you for your support and presence. Hit the like button, share the channel, share the platform. Follow me on Instagram as well, which is at young.brando when you can. And as long as you can help me expand this community, that's more valuable than everything else at any rate. So we are looking now at an example of FP Journe chronomètre bleu. It's a watch that still remains quite desirable from a brand that has, for a long while, even against the grain, even against the trends, performed quite well in auctions. But I think even that might be coming to an end, and there were signs before. However, you know, I remember a time when people were a little less certain about the future of the horological market, where I had seen at least a few chronomètre bleus listed and exchange hands around $75,000. Now the price point is a little higher, and I will, you know, I have to say, and no pun intended, I think this watch, whether you like it or not, and I don't have any strong feelings against it. Perhaps I don't like it as much as some other people, but it remains a blue chip investment when it comes to those kinds of pieces. So if you can ever find a good deal on it, it makes sense to buy one. I'm not going to say this one necessarily sold for a good deal, because it was, I believe, 720,000 Hong Kong dollars, which is more than 92,000 in US dollars. But it speaks again to the lasting vogue of Journe pieces. This does come with the certificate of authenticity, the product literature, and the presentation box. One thing that does make some, the chronomètre bleu, as well as the chronomètre Holland and Holland, which was the stainless steel one that they did in collaboration with the London's best rifle house. They are 39 millimeters in diameter, just a smidgen smaller than the chronomètre Sovereign, which is otherwise a good point of entry if you like the more elegant, dressy aesthetic or aspects of this watch from FP Journe. But yeah, the chronomètre bleu is slightly smaller at 39 millimeters, so might be in fact desirable for that reason as well. It has the famous chrome blue dial, which is actually quite attractive. Of course, the off-center subdial for seconds, which is differently finished, so adds another level of depth or dimension to the dial. So again, a very sleek watch as well. And honestly, for a long while, even though AP has been experimenting with tantalum, usually combining it with pink gold, at times also stainless steel. This watch and FP Journe specifically was really what put tantalum more solidly on the map, especially as a niche material for watchmaking. And it, there's a whole spiel that goes with it. I think it's just an attractive metal, honestly. It has this gunmetal gray look. It has a lot of heft to it. So, you can get that kind of, stern, grave look that a lot of people associate with like a blasted finish on titanium, except here you get the weight of like a precious metal watch.
Sure.
Rather than the lightness of titanium. And you have, of course, the movement, which is largely, at least in terms of its main plate and bridges, rendered in 18 karat pink gold.
Mm.
It's the caliber 1304. Again, perhaps in terms of its finishing, Journe's movements might not be as artisanal as some of the most desirable independent makers, but I've always liked their architecture. And their movements also are, in a way, very well engineered, and you might even say in terms of their automatic movement, over-engineered in terms of power reserve. But this is not bad either. I think the 1304 probably has a power reserve around 56 hours, maybe 50 hours at chronometric precision, and a little more.
Sure.
I think overall, it's a very good package. Perhaps not seemingly worth of the prices it trades for on the secondary market, but then again, they don't seem to be falling down severely in the recent months or so. So it's something to consider, something to put in the back of your mind. Any last words or anything you would like to share, Basil?
No, I was just gonna add with that last auction, just FP Journe in general. I know there was kind of some concerns with, was it Francois, the owner of the company, getting a little funky at some gatherings.
Well, I don't know. I never, I don't traffic in rumors, as you know.
Of course.
So I never really pursued that. What I want to say about that specifically, not having been there and not knowing the exact details of that encounter, which was reported mostly as hearsay, I have to emphasize, is the following. I mean, on the one hand, a lot of us complain about how corporate some of the CEOs are for the brands, right? And I don't want to single out anyone, so I'm not going to name them, but you can basically know what I mean, right? A lot of these watch brands that are owned by larger luxury conglomerates, some of them have very human, approachable, and relatable CEOs. Others are just corporate talking heads, right? They give like at least a dozen interviews throughout the year, which just repeat the same talking points,
right?
That don't really lead anywhere, that don't really address any of the concerns of the actual clients, potential clients, as well as established collectors of that brand. None of the concerns and questions that make the rounds in social media and among collector circles actually get responded to or dignified with any sort of answer by those kinds of people. And we complain a lot about that CEO archetype, right? The corporate, the businessman, usually with a background in either law or business, purely speaking, no experience in watches before. And then you have brands like FP Journe, which at least as a figurehead have a master watchmaker as their main representative. And you have someone who has a self-assessment as mostly an artist rather than just another watchmaker. Someone who considers himself a protege of Abraham Louis Breguet over centuries, that he speaks to him and only to him. He has the same claim to George Daniels too, even though George Daniels obviously had his actual students, among which Roger Smith is only one. So you clearly have someone who is a very unique, some might even say quirky individual, and he's known to be pretty rough around the edges.
Fair.
You can't. Long and short of it, you can't have it both ways, right? If you want to have a brand where you have dinners with collectors, where you have the master watchmaker with you, he eats with you, he gets drunk with you.
True story.
What do you exactly expect?
Exactly.
Right? I'm not trying to excuse any sort of bad behavior or anything that may have been said, because I haven't been there. But in the same way, I'm also not going to admonish it, because again, I haven't heard it. I don't have a knowledge of it. And again, I'm talking from the most objective perspective possible. I don't own any FP Journe watches. I don't have any aspiration to buy one at retail or through the secondary market. So I'm not afraid to criticize them when it's necessary and when it's something that I can pinpoint. But that being said, I'm also not gonna try to, criticize them based on pure hearsay either, right?
That's
There's
only
plenty of bad experience to go around that I can talk about, so many other brands before I get to Journe. And ultimately that's my idea, right? If you actually are privileging collecting independent brands, and specifically FP Journe, because it is based on this sort of level of human interaction, relatable people, both through your local boutique and even at the highest level, where you become part of the family in a way, like, on an annual basis, you get to eat and party with the master watchmaker or his brother and whatever else.
They even have their own action figure, right? the dolls that
Yeah, I
you could
mean,
buy.
again, without getting to that
I'm
level of
kidding. I'm kidding.
idolization,
Yeah.
I think no, you that's a relevant point. That's the guy is fetishized in a way, right? So you
Yeah.
can't have it both ways. Ultimately, this is what I'm saying. That doesn't give the particular person the free license to just do about anything, but you can't uh, put someone on the pedestal as a horological genius and at the same time uh, expect them to treat you with the kinds of kid gloves that a corporate CEO would, right? I feel like, it's an unrealistic expectation.
Yeah. You don't put somebody on the pedestal and then rip it out from under them and say, "Hey, you're one of the guys now."
Again, I don't know exactly what happened, so I don't. It's not a commentary on what may have transpired on a certain night in a collector's dinner in Geneva. I could care less. Ultimately, I think the market speaks, and they have spoken. It hasn't affected their reputation the slightest bit, and I don't know whether it was because it was based on lies or because precisely people give FB Journe the license to be different than, like, FB Journe the person, François Paul Journe the person, some sort of license to poetic license, as it were, to act in a way that other corporate figureheads can't. And I think that's actually normal, as long as it's not this sort of want-on disrespect on your own customer. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate all of you, especially those of you, Cloud Ken and JB back to back, who have contributed with super chats. But beyond that, thank you all for being here, and thank you, Basil's Bezels and Aussie Expat, for being here. Basil, if you don't mind, since you are a wrench, so to speak, and a mod in the chat as well, please drop the link to anything you like, but specifically your YouTube channel and Instagram. Oz too has his YouTube channel at Aussie Expat Watches on YouTube. I have shared his Instagram link before, so if you want to support them, please do subscribe to them. Please follow them. Again, there's so many different ways of supporting this channel, but I think becoming a member to have access to exclusive content is some of the best ways. One of the best ways. You can also gift those memberships, as you know, in the chat to others. If nothing else, please share the link with other enthusiasts and watch collectors and help me expand this community that is purely at the service of its audience, purely based on and around the passion for wristwatches and enhancing our knowledge on them collectively. My Instagram has faced a lot of growth that seems to dwarf my YouTube channels at this point. So any help in kind of addressing that grave injustice in terms of sharing these links would be really helpful. Hopefully, as I get healthier, both from a physical and mental standpoint, I'll be producing more videos as well. But for now, I think this channel offers a lot of quality in terms of live streams. So anything you can give to support it would be great, because again, this channel is not sponsored by anyone, and that's quite intentional when it comes to the watch industry, because I want to be able, for us all, and me in particular, to speak freely, to speak our minds, to speak objectively, and to share our experience without any filter, because we know what other platforms have turned into over the years, from the largest ones that claim to be journalistic to some of the more local and small-minded platforms here that also supposedly live stream on watches, except of course they're pretty poor in actual horological content. We don't serve gray market dealers here. We don't serve any sinister interests from the watch industry. We don't get any sponsorships from auction houses either. So we're completely serving the audience and at the behest of the audience too. So anything you give goes directly into the channel and makes my work possible here. So I appreciate it. I think we are signing off. Thank you again, everyone, for asking your questions, for contributing in the chat, and thank you especially CloudCan and JB for your super chats. I appreciate you. Follow me on Instagram and leave a comment here once the live stream ends, because that is also really helpful in expediting how this thing travels. All right. Take care, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, wear and enjoy your watches. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.